All right, everyone. Welcome to the Tonto's Demise Week 10 recap. All right. That was a little bit of, as you probably know, Benny and the Jets, because I am pissed off at the Jets. And it's cold, so I got my hoodie on still. And I'm all bundled up because it's winter, almost winter, cold enough to be winter. I don't like it. It's dark at 4:30. It's just, I don't like this time of year. So I'm all bundled up and I'm pissed off. I'm bundled up and pissed off, so. But what are you going to do? Alright, what happened in Week 10? We had a couple teams have their matchups come down, to Monday night. They were really close until that last Giants drive. We very nearly, I was kind of pulling for this, even though it was going to go against me. We very nearly had two matchups that would have been decided by about a point, 1 point or so. But then Eli went on that touchdown drive at the end of the game, had a long completion to Saquon Barkley, like a 20, 25-yard completion, which put that one away for Gags. And then Sterling Shepard had the touchdown catch, which locked that one up for the Bad Luck Bears. Let's take a look at anything else here. In terms of the matchups, Shawshank kept his thin playoff hopes alive with a victory. Let's see. Why don't I just stop going through the looking on my computer here at the matchup results, and let's just get right to it. Let's just actually go through them instead of me sitting here staring at them. So, as I mentioned, first matchup, defending champion Springfield Isotopes going up against From Gags to Riches. Gags to Riches lost in Week 1, and he has not lost since. And that streak continues again, as we had the number 1 going against the number 2. And like I said, Gags to Riches squeaked it out on Monday night. He needed about 9.5 points from Saquon Barkley, I believe, which he's been over 20 every single week this year so far. He only got 14 points this week, but that was enough to squeak out the victory. Gags to Riches gets his 9th win in a row, which ties the longest winning streak that we have at least recorded on Yahoo. There's been some question whether or not that's the longest winning streak of all time. I have no idea. I just go by what is actually verifiable. Alright, so, Gags to Riches. He had Dak Prescott going for 50.4, and I know because I know some stuff here because this is my matchup, and I was looking into things here before in terms of numbers. Dak Prescott got 50.4, which is his highest score of the year. Most of his scores were in the 30s all year long until this week when he got 50. Wide receivers, Devontae Adams, Alshon Jeffrey, and Anthony Miller. Adams, only 4 catches, but 2 of them were touchdowns. He got a 21.5. Alshon, 8.8. And then another big difference maker here was Anthony Miller from the Bears. You plugged him in. Not even sure you've ever used him. Picked him up off waivers at some point. He got you 23.2, which he has not been over his highest score. He's been in single digits pretty much every week this year. He's at a 10 and he had a 13 somewhere in there. But this was basically doubling his highest point total of the season. Probably the 1 week that you'll use him. I think he's already on your bench for next week. But that's the way it goes. Let's see. Saquon Barkley, and he picked up Bibbs from the Redskins. I think you had Jeswick in there from the 49ers before. You picked him up, had him plugged in there, then dropped him for Bibbs, which I think actually might have saved this matchup for you, because I don't think Jeswick really did much of anything in that game. But Bibbs got you 6. Like I said, Barkley had 14. Travis Kelce, only 10.5, so kind of a quiet game there. Tyrell and Williams in your flex again, only 8.5. Kicker was Zerline, he got you about 12 or so. And then the Kansas City Chiefs defense, I believe, let's see, Yahoo says 17. I think the actual score was 29. We had at least 3 or 4 teams for some reason this week. I think their defenses all scored 29 points, if I remember correctly from going through the numbers there. But for some reason, the number 29 seemed to come up a couple times this week. But anyway, 184.6 was enough to get past the Isotopes this week. Let's take a look at their lineup. Patrick Mahomes, 43.5. His first week since week 1, where he was not over 300 yards passing. Difference there. Tyreek Hill, 32.5. Doug Baldwin, just under 9. And Valdez Scantling, 10.5. Running backs, James White and Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones popped off for 35. And unfortunately, James White, he had his lowest output of the season, only 7.5. Greg Olsen, 8 points there. Gurley, another 28. Mason Crosby, looks like he got about 7.5. And then the big problem here was going with the Jets defense at home against Buffalo. I was looking at some other stuff off of waivers, thinking about it. It's like, come on. They just picked up a quarterback off the street. They're throwing him in there. They're in New York. It's the Jets. Their final score was -2. They couldn't even get me positive points in a 4-point matchup. So, but such is fantasy football. It's only 1 week. Losing with 180, it stings. But at least my team, I feel like good, feel confident. I think this is exact 2 weeks in a row my team has actually scored exactly 180 and lost. Let me take a quick peek here. Last week was 180.85, and this week was 180.15, and both were losses. So can't be too mad. Pretty sure already in the playoffs, and said losing with a score that would have beat a lot of people. Can't be too upset about that. Although said at the beginning of the season, it's kind of trailed off a little bit, but 180 points used to be great. Now it's just average. I think 180 is now the new 150. Last year, if you scored 150, you were it was like a coin flip on whether you're going to win or lose. Now you're scoring really anything between probably 175 to 195-ish. Maybe 175 to 190 that's the new area. That's kind of a coin flip, whether you're going to win or lose. And so, but unfortunately for the Isotopes, they lose this one. They fall to 8-2. This is the first time all season that the Springfield Isotopes are no longer in first place. As Gags to Riches takes over that spot, he is 9-1, and the Isotopes are second at 8-2. All right, and I believe, just taking a quick peek here, that Gags to Riches with that win got a little asterisk next to his name, and he is the first team to clinch a playoff spot this year. So congratulations to you. All right, next we had the other Monday night matchup, which was also a Huber brother battle. And as I already mentioned, the Bad Luck Bears were able to squeak this one out thanks to, so they got some breathing room to make the matchup at the end. The final score, not quite as painful for the White Wolf there. Final score 174.65 to 167 exactly. And I think until that last drive, like, the White Wolf was right there within a half of a point, I think. If they would have just thrown a pass to Alfred Morris, just one pass to him, instead of his rushing stats, or if he could have gotten a little bit more. I mean, he only had a couple carries, got decent yardage. I think he only had maybe 3 carries, but he got about 20 yards there, but it was not enough. Said as Sterling Shepard got that touchdown at the end, which broke it away for you. All right, let's go down the lineup here. Drew Brees for the Bad Luck Bears, 53.5. Brandon Cooks, 27. Mike Evans, 8. And Shepard went for 11.5. And your running backs, James Conner and Theo Riddick. Conner, 14.5. Riddick, exactly 12. Your tight end, Jimmy Graham, only 2.5. Ito Smith in the flex there, 6.5. Kicker was Hopkins from the Redskins. Looks like he got you about 12.5. And then the Bears defense, Yahoo says 18. I forget what the actual score was. I want to say it was one of those ones. I think it was one of those ones that was close to 30. Something like that. But it was enough to get past the White Wolf this week. Let's take a look at his lineup. Matthew Stafford at quarterback. All of your Broncos were on bye this week, so you had to play Matthew Stafford. He got you 41.5. Michael Thomas got you another 27. Juju had a long touchdown, so he actually got you 22.3. Cooper Kupp got you 9 points before, unfortunately for the White Wolf, another season-ending injury to one of his players. That was Cooper Kupp. He tore his ACL, and unfortunately, he is done for the year. Might be able to make it back in time for the beginning of next season. Said mid-November. That's said we're getting more than halfway through the season. So he will, if he makes it, he should be able to make it back in time for the start of next season. But that's going to be, I think, cutting it pretty close there for him. So unfortunately, because he's one of the consistent wide receivers there. Hate to see a guy like that go down. Just a good football player. Anyway, running backs Frank Gore and Alfred Morris, 12.2 and 1.9 respectively. Your tight end was Njoku, and he only got 2.8. That was enough to beat Jimmy Graham there with his 2.4. You had D.D. Westbrook in the flex, about 9.5 points there. Kicker was Boswell. He got you about 5. Sorry, I'm looking at his field goal. It was 50 yards there. So he got you 12 point something. And then you played the Redskins defense, which did pretty good. Yahoo says 23. It was probably closer to... Well, I know they gave up a ton of yards because Fitzpatrick somehow had 400 yards, and they only scored 3 points. So the actual score was probably somewhere in the low to mid 30s. But again, not enough to get past Bad Luck Bears this week, because the White Wolf, he stays winless in last place. He is 0-10. And the Bad Luck Bears move up from 5-4 to 6-4, and they are now in 5th place. So I think we had a lot of 5-4s last week, and now we've got several 6-4s, a couple of 5-5s. We'll get to the standings there at the end of this. Next matchup, we have Hillbillies on PCP, trying to keep his playoff hopes alive, going against one of the top teams so far this year, Disco. And Hillbillies on PCP was able to do it, as most of his team scored a bunch of touchdowns. Final score here, 221.05 to 193.9. I think Disco was actually down about 70 or 80 points. Going into Monday night, he had Beckham Jr. and Breida, and all the touchdowns in that game, well, until the final one, were scored by his guys, so they gave it a valiant effort. But not enough to get past the Hillbillies this week. Let's see, how many touchdowns did the Hillbillies score this week? He had what? Let's see, 2, 3, 4. Did David Johnson score any touchdowns? It's not listed on his sheet here. But it was up 4. 5. Ebron had 3. That's 6, 7, 8. McCaffrey had 3, I think. That's 11. Let's see. David Johnson. Yeah, he had a touchdown somewhere in there. So you had at least a dozen touchdowns from your team. Let's see. Cam Newton, 38.5. Wide receivers, Josh Gordon, Kenny Golladay, and Antonio Brown, 12, 19.8, and 21.5, respectively. Running backs, David Johnson and Duke Johnson Jr., 2 D. Johnsons, 37.5 for David Johnson, and 14.5 for Duke Johnson. As I mentioned, Ebron scored 3 touchdowns, got you 28 points. McCaffrey scored 3 touchdowns, got you 36, almost 37 points. Kicker was Butker, he got you about 11. And your defense was the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost the game, didn't do too good. Yahoo says 7. I think that actually was the correct total. I'm trying to remember. If it wasn't, it couldn't have been. It definitely wasn't much more than that. Actually, it might have, because I think Dak didn't actually have a ton of passing yards. It might have been 10, something like that. But it was right around there where it wasn't a big jump in your point total. But the 220 was enough to get past Disco. Like I said, he had Fitzpatrick go for just under 50. Receivers, Beckham Jr., Ridley, and Corey Davis. 23.5, 7, and 25.5. Running backs, Tevin Coleman and Breida. 9.3 and 31.2, respectively. Jordan Reed, just over 9. Melvin Gordon, 27.5. Gostowski, your kicker, looks like he got you about 5 or so. And the Falcons defense, you picked them up, played them against Cleveland this week, played them against your boys. That might be what happened here in this matchup. Yahoo says 3. I think it was right around there, or maybe a couple more points than that. But yeah, that was a big factor here. Well, there really isn't much you can do. I think when your opponent scores 221, it's going to take pretty much a perfect lineup for you, everything going correctly to get a win in that situation there. Went against the Tennessee defense, who got you through last week. Didn't trust them at home against New England. Maybe seemed like the right play going into it. Probably seems like the wrong play coming out of it. But again, I'm not sure that any changes you could have made in your starting lineup would have made a difference here to get that 220 and get the win here. But you're certainly not in a tough position here, not nearly as tough as the Hillbillies. So even with the defeat, Disco, he's 7-3. He's in 3rd place, while Hillbillies on PCP, he moved up to 5-5. He is in 7th place. All right, let's see. Next we had Space Antelope. The 0-3 Blues no longer applying here. He gets, let's see, ever since he was 0-3, he's been 6-1 ever since, because he's now 6-4. He gets the win this week over FC Bohoric, who is the The first team to have the I'm not even sure what to say about it. The glory, I guess, of scoring the noteworthy goal or result. I don't know, of not clearing 100 points. Not this year. A record in futility, I guess we could say. FC Bohuric, the first team in 2018 to not break 100. So made it pretty easy here on Space Antelope, who needs to get these wins and kind of got an easy one here. Let's take a look. Well, the final score was 168.15 to 97.15. For Space Antelope, we had Philip Rivers with just over 34. Wide receivers, Edelman, Julio, and Larry Fitzgerald, 20.5, 23.5, and 11 respectively. Running backs, Ingram and Sony Michel. Ingram, couple touchdowns, 28.2, but Sony Michel only 3 points. Kittle, 17 or so. Beasley in your flex, because there was no DeAndre Hopkins this week. He got you 7.5. Lutz, your kicker. Excuse me. He got you about 17 or so. And you went with the New England Patriots defense in this one. Hindsight would have said play the Buffalo Bills defense, but it didn't make a difference here. You probably could have used those extra points. But let's see. Patriots defense looks like they got 2 on Yahoo. I think that was either the right score or else they had maybe 5, something in that area. But yeah, pretty much not much more than what Yahoo says. But really, didn't take too much to get past FC Bohuric this week. He had Andy Dalton since, let's see, he went against, he had Derek Carr on the bench. And as we all know, he also had Mariota on the bench. Probably was hoping for a shootout in this game, but the Saints defense came to play, and no AJ Green meant Andy Dalton. Yikes, Andy Dalton only got you 18.5. So even if you had started one of your other quarterbacks, said Mariota got 40, Carr only had 35, so you were still going to lose this matchup. Let's see. Wide receivers, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Keelan Cole. Moore, 6.5. Keenan Allen, 17.5. And unfortunately for you, Cole, 0. Running backs, Kareem Hunt and Adrian Peterson. Quiet game for Hunt, only 11.5. Peterson, just under 9. Tight end, no Gronk, so you had to go with Uzomah. And he suffered right along with Andy Dalton there. Only 5.5 points. Kenny Stills in your flex, only 4.5. Rosas, your kicker from the Giants there on Monday night. He got you about 9 points. And then the Rams defense, Yahoo says 7. I believe it was closer to maybe 13 or 16, somewhere in that range. But yeah, mostly single-digit scores here for FC Bohuric. Outside of, said Keenan Allen and the Rams defense. And 18 points from your quarterback is almost never going to do it. And unfortunately, the season of anguish continues on for well, yeah, it's been bad for you, but it's been worse for other people. So we can't get too upset here. FC Bohuric, unfortunately, you dropped to 2-8. You are in 11th place. And Space Antelope, he moves up to 6-4, and he is in 6th place. So we'll have to see. I don't think we did have a pod. There was a podcast last week, right? They didn't miss. So nobody's been clapped out yet. The tradition. I think we can safely clap out FC Bohuric, the White Wolf, and Possum Magic are all, I think, safe to clap out for the 2018 season. Maybe they will address that whenever they get together here on Thursday. Let's see. Next matchup, we had Mighty Midgets going against the Dub C Hooligans. Both of these teams were 5-4. One of you was going to drop back to 500. One of you was going to get one step closer to a playoff spot. And unfortunately for the Dub C Hooligans, they fell to the Mighty Midgets. Final score here, 205.3 to 160.1. For the Mighty Midgets, let's take a look. He had Ben Roethlisberger. He had a long touchdown there, so his actual score was 67. Wide receivers, Amendola, Marvin Jones, and Adam Humphries. Said no Thielen. He was on bye this week. Amendola, 14. Jones, 8.5. And Humphries, 7.5. Your running back combo, Kamara and Zeke. Another big performance here from them. Let's see, 26 for Kamara and just under 40 for Zeke. He had 150 yards, a couple touchdowns, I think, bunch of catches. So big game for them. They got you. So yeah, that was about 65, 66 points from those two. They are able to pop off and do that pretty much any given week. And they did it again here, unfortunately, for the Hooligans. Tight end, Cook, 9.2. Austin Eckler in the flex, only 2 points. Kicker was Prater. Looks like he got you about 5 or 6.5 maybe. And the Chargers defense, Yahoo says 16. It was probably closer to 30-ish, something like that. There were no big defensive scores because I didn't really mark anything in my notes here. So there was nothing that really stood out. So I think a lot of teams had defenses get around 30 points there. But anyway, Mighty Midgets, enough to get past the Dub C Hooligans. He had Goff go for 55. Just always interested to take a look because he's got every week he's trying to decide between Goff and Andrew Luck there. Not a decision I would want to have to be making every single week because you never know when Andrew Luck's going to pop off for 65, 70 points. He has an 85-pointer this year already, so you never know when that's going to happen. But he is definitely probably not quite as consistent as Jared Goff. You know what you're getting. You're going to get a 45 to 50-pointer pretty much every week. So he had 55. Receivers were Lockett, Woods, and Sanu. 19.5, 14.5, and 8.5 respectively. So with no Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods might be getting a huge bump here for you as you try to hold on and make one of those playoff spots. LaShawn McCoy, probably his best game of all year. He had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. McCoy's previous high was 15, and he got you 27.8 this week. Let's see, tight end, O.J. Howard, no more Zach Ertz for you. He only got you 2.5 points. Marlon Mack, recently acquired in that trade, you got 7.8. Let's see. So I think, was that the first? Yeah, that was their first week back from a bye. Marlon Mack had been over 30 points the previous 2 weeks, but he was against Jacksonville, so that's going to be a tough matchup. That's always going to be difficult for pretty much any offensive player there. So maybe you weren't expecting another 30-point outburst, but a little bit more than 7 probably would have been nice. Kicker Myers from the Jets, looks like he got you about 6.5, and then you picked up and played the San Francisco defense there on Monday night because you had no, Vikings defense. They got you, Yahoo says 4. I think it was right around there. So they lost. They gave up too many points. They only had one sack. I think 4 was actually the right score. If not, it was very close to that. Definitely less than 10. But not enough to get past the midgets. Said he had a couple big performers here. He broke the 200-point barrier. He is now 6-4. He is in 4th place, while the Dub C Hooligans dropped to 5-5. They are in 8th place. Next matchup we have. This is the final matchup. We had Shawshank Athletics. We're trying to hold on to their playoff glimmer, their slight glimmer of playoff hopes. He's got to win out, and he was able to pretty much clobber the Possum Magic this week. Final score 213.25 to Possum Magic 134.1. So about an 80-point margin of victory here. Shawshank Athletics. You should talk more often about how much your team sucks, because then they pop off for 200 points here. Let's see. Aaron Rodgers, 40 points. Receivers, Funchess, Deshaun Jackson, and T.Y. Hilton, 6, 11.5, and 10.5 respectively. So not too much there. But the rest came from your next 4 guys. Running backs, Chubb and Fournette. Chubb had a long touchdown run. I think it was a 90-some yard touchdown run. He also had a receiving touchdown. He got you almost 39 points. Fournette had 2 touchdowns. He got you almost 28. And Zach Ertz got you 40.5. He had 14 catches, 2 touchdowns. And then, excuse me again, in the flex you played Allen Robinson. I think you were back and forth a little bit between him or Kerryon Johnson. Made the right call here. Fortunately for you, it didn't really matter. Said Allen Robinson, he had 31.3. Kerryon would have gotten you 25, but went with an extra wide receiver there in the flex. I'm not sure if that's always the best play, because I see Kerryon Johnson, he had 6 catches here. He had 2 touchdowns. So that's, I don't know if said maybe you're hoping for a shootout there. You might want to be putting Robinson up as one of your wide receivers and get Kerryon back in the starting lineup here, which I'm sure you probably will end up doing. I don't need to be telling you what to do and what not to do. But let's see. So then you had said, fortunately, you had these four guys blow up because your kicker was Parkey from the Bears, and I believe from what I read, he hit the upright on 4 different kicks. You should get a little bit of credit, because that's definitely an accomplishment, I think. 2 of them were PATs, 2 of them were field goals, I think. He actually scored you -2. Actually might have been a little bit. So he did make a field goal, looks like. I'm not sure what the yardage was. So his actual total might have been like -1.4, 1.5, something like that. But anyway, didn't affect your matchup here. And then you had Jacksonville's defense. They got clobbered by the Colts. They had 1 turnover, but they lost and gave up a lot of points, a lot of yards too, I think. Yahoo says 3. It was probably 3. If I just off the top of my head, it was probably right around that total. But said even though you might have gotten pretty much 0 points from your kicker and your defense, it was more than enough to get past Possum Magic this week. He had Baker Mayfield and Jarvis Landry, the Mayfield-Landry connection, only getting 42 and 4.5. It still amazes me how good Jarvis Landry looked way back at the beginning of the season, early on, a couple weeks in, when he came in and replaced Baker Mayfield, or he replaced Tyrod Taylor. What game was that? That was week 3 against the Jets. He came in and only played half the game, but still scored like 30 points, had over 200 yards, and just looked like he was ready to come in and just take over. And Jarvis Landry had a good week that week. Looked like Landry was going to be his guy. And as we all know, you also then proceeded to trade Antonio Brown for Jarvis Landry and a guy who is now pretty much irrelevant. Hines on your bench. Once Marlon Mack came back, there was no... said that guy's been pretty much useless. I think he was useless more or less before Mack came back. It's talking about the Colts there. It's been, even T.Y. Hilton has been a disappointment. It's been it boggles my mind to say this, but it's been pretty much the Eric Ebron show in Indianapolis this year. It just feels weird to say that. It doesn't seem right, but but that's the way it's going. But let's get back talking about Possum Magic here. Landry said only 4.5. Tyler Boyd only 9.5, and Golden Tate only 4. Running backs Richard and Kenyon Drake 11 and 6 respectively. Trey Burton, tight end, 10 points. Mike Davis in the flex. He actually did okay. He got you 18 points. Gano, your kicker, only 3. And then you went with the Packers defense. Yahoo says 18. I want to say it was closer to 30 or so, somewhere in that area. Maybe low 30s, but not enough. Said you got 40 from your quarterback, 30 from your defense. Your buttons were strong against Josh. I'm sure he respects that, but everything else in between, not so much. Mostly single-digit scores there, outside of Mike Davis, who I have to say, as a Doug Baldwin owner and watching the Rams-Seahawks game, it's quite frustrating to have a part of the Seahawks their passing game, and man, they just do not want to pass the ball. They want to run and run and run and run, throw a pass and run some more. Man, that's what they're doing. That's what they're back to doing. But it was working for the most part because they ran the ball all over the Rams. Even what's his name, Penny, looked pretty good. I think was there somebody else too besides Davis, but even Russell Wilson. Every time he ran, it looked like took off and ran, he was getting 10 to 12 yards a clip here. So maybe I can take a quick look and see what Russell Wilson's rushing stats were for that matchup. Russell Wilson had 92 rushing yards in that game. Let's go back to Possum Magic here. So like I said, to finish up this matchup, Shawshank Athletics holds on to his playoff hopes. He moves up to 4-6. Got to still win out to get to 7-6. So we'll see what happens there. Going to be a tough road for you. Definitely not impossible, but definitely tricky as well. So even though a couple of teams have been doing it so far this season, in our league, I still think that winning four games in a row is no small feat for the most part here. But Shawshank said we had those two teams at 5-5. They were in 7th and 8th place, and you're right behind them in 9th place. As for Possum Magic, you are actually right above Shawshank. He is right above you, and you are in 10th place, and you are 2-8. Looking ahead already to 2019. All right, so those were the matchups for Week 10. The knockout pool, Week 11 is always the final week, and unfortunately for Bad Luck Bears, Disco got all those touchdowns on Monday night. He was able to move past you and hold on. The other team was Mighty Midgets. He was already over 200. And so the three teams that were left were Mighty Midgets, Disco, and the Bad Luck Bears. Said Midgets with 205, Disco with 193. Unfortunately, 174.5 was not enough to survive this week for the Bad Luck Bears. And the final comes down next week to Mighty Midgets versus Disco for the knockout money. All right, let's take a look at the standings here. Like I said, Possum Magic, FC Bohoric, the White Wolf, you guys are more or less toast looking on to next year. Said Gags to Riches, he moves up to first place, taking over for the Springfield Isotopes. Said Disco drops to 7-3. He's got 3 teams right on his tail now at 6-4, and then two teams at 5-5. So, and said Shawshank still holding on to hope there. Let's see. So we've got. Let's take a. And thinking, I think it's safe to already start thinking about the playoffs. Take a look here. It said Gags has clinched. If they get a win this week, the Isotopes, I assume they will clinch if they get 9 wins. I think we can assume that Disco is going to make it unless he completely collapses here these last couple of weeks. So he's already at 7 wins. But then we've got Midgets, Bears, and Space Antelope at 6-4. That's 3 teams taking up the last 3 playoff spots as of right now. But you still got 3 other teams, Hillbillies, Dub C, and Shawshank, fighting to steal 1 or 2 of those spots there. So the way it's shaping up, I mean, if the playoffs started today, it would be the Midgets, the Bears, and Space Antelope as the 4, 5, and 6 seeds. But then we get Hillbillies on PCP. I mean, I don't know about the Dubsy Hooligans. They've gotten some wins with some less than ideal scores here, but at least those I don't want to knock on. I don't want to knock the Dubsy Hooligans here or Shawshank, but I just feel like those might be teams that end up on the outside looking in. But I do think that no matter how things unfold these next 3 weeks, there's going to be at least one good team that doesn't make the playoffs this year. Will it be Hillbillies on PCP or Space Antelope? Maybe Bad Luck Bears? I don't know. Mighty Midgets could slide. You never know. One of those teams. Those 3 spots. Seeds 4, 5, and 6. Well, there's only 3 spots, but if we got 4 or 5 teams vying for them, so this is gonna be a really good year, I think, and I'm already excited for the playoffs because, like I said, we're probably gonna have one really good team that's gonna miss the playoffs, and that's it's just the way it goes. Unfortunately for whoever it's going to be. But when it comes down to the playoffs, then I think there are no, at this point, real favorites. If the playoffs started today with those 6 teams that would be in it, your guess is as good as mine as to who would come away with the Tonto Bowl championship this year. I mean, all of those teams are able to pop off a 200-pointer, if not more, any given Sunday. They're all good. They're just all good, solid teams up and down. I think no team is perfect. Every team has their weaknesses. They definitely have some. Every team certainly has some high points there. Good players that can carry the load for some of the underperformers there. But oh man, it's gonna be no matter who makes it of those, what combination of 6, it's going to be a really, really competitive playoff this year, I think. So I'm already looking forward to that. I think that's about it. There's nothing that stands out that I didn't cover here. So that's it for week 10. We're moving on to week 11. Take a quick peek at the matchups here, see if there's any real important ones. We got the Isotopes trying to bounce back, going against Possum Magic, who hasn't been doing too well, as we know. The projection is about an 80-point difference here right now. I don't know if that's how accurate that's going to end up being, but so we got Shawshank trying to get another win. He's going against the White Wolf, who is winless. So on paper, good time to catch the White Wolf here for Shawshank Athletics, but you never know. Then we're going to have a great matchup here as the Bad Luck Bears going against the Dub C Hooligans. Dub C, he needs this one to get to 6-5. He could possibly drop the Bad Luck Bears to 6-5. He is projected to win this one as of right now. Don't know how that's going to go for you, but because Bad Luck Bears has been pretty consistent all year long. But Dub C, we're getting to the point where you need those wins. Probably you need this one probably a little bit more than the Bears do, but that's only going to make it even more interesting to watch. Then we've got the new first place team, Gags to Riches, going head to head with Disco. That's going to be another slugfest to watch as Disco tries to turn it around and give Gags his second loss, end that winning streak. Looks like Gags is projected to slightly, just a 4-point favorite right now, but that is going to be another great matchup to watch with playoff implications. Hillbillies, just like Shawshank, I think, going up against FC Bahorik, who has just had a pretty disappointing season all around. Hillbillies, another matchup that you need, and you are about a 50-point favorite according to Yahoo so far. So maybe kind of looking out with the schedule here this time of year when you are in a position where you need a win. You got a pretty good chance of getting one here. I definitely know a thing or two about getting to week 11 and 12 late in the season and having things, getting some gifts from the schedule, I guess, to help you along your way here. So, but anything's possible. We'll see what happens, but it's not looking too good there for FC Bahorik. And then we've got another great matchup. 2 6-4s, Mighty Midgets versus Space Antelope. Whoever wins here will reach the magic number of 7 and will most likely be probably not clinching a playoff spot yet, but they'll definitely be in the driver's seat for one of those. And whoever loses will drop to 6-5 and have to probably get one win, at least one win, in the last 2 weeks. Mighty Midgets looks like about a 15-point favorite going in. So that's going to be a great matchup to watch. So we've got, let's see, Bears versus Hooligans, Disco versus Gags, and Midgets versus Space Antelope. Those are going to be the 3 big matchups to watch this week. Can Possum Magic pull off a big upset? Can FC Bahorik pull off a big upset? And can the White Wolf pull off an upset this week? You never know what could happen. But it's going to be fun to watch. Another great week. Looks like we've got coming up, said with playoff implications. Everybody said a couple of teams fighting. There's more teams fighting for more spots. There's more teams fighting for more than there are spots available. So yeah. Going to be another great matchup to watch. Great week of matchups to watch here. So hopefully for the 1 or 2 people that have made it this far or in the video recap here, that's it, guys. Hopefully all your players perform up to and perhaps exceed expectations this week. Hopefully no big injuries, and we have another good one. And I will, I guess, see you back here again next week, right before Thanksgiving, for the Week 11 recap. Don't forget that the trade deadline is this weekend, I think Friday night. So you're probably getting a notification on the Yahoo app there. I'm not sure. I haven't checked it, but just so everyone knows, maybe I'll put it on the Line app there. Just a reminder, make sure everyone knows that the trade deadline is this weekend. So, all right, other than that, I think that's it. So, thanks everybody, and we'll see you back here again next week. Thanks, guys.